Oh. Hey, what is up, all you individuals out there? It's me, full-time anime man. And yes, practical face reveal and in a story. That would be because the recorder on the app that I usually use seems to be malfunctioning and is not catching the audio of what I'm saying. So, the next best thing here. So, yeah, this is part 6, I believe, or part 7 of What If Deku Had Maleficent's Powers. I'm pretty sure it's part 7. The story we'll tell today. Hope you all enjoy. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Since the recorder wants to fail on me, why not just go ahead and use the other thing that I have? Filming. In fact, give me 1 second. Yeah, that's a little better. So yeah, nothing to say here. Let's go ahead and get into it. In the break room, everyone readied themselves, except for Izuku, who had sat at the end of the table moping. And across the room, so was Toto-chan. Deku had finally built up enough guts to get up and go over and talk to her. As he gets closer, he gets second thoughts, but he told himself that he can't back down now. He has to follow through and say what he wants to say. Before he knew it, he was standing next to Toto-chan.
What do you want?
She said. Well, first off, you forgot this at the castle. Izuku then revealed a tiny broomstick.
What the hell happened to it?
Said Toto-chan. I shrinked it, but don't worry, once you're ready to use it again, it'll grow back to its normal size. Todoroki then turned her head, not taking the broom as if she didn't want it anymore. Izuku then sighed and said, "Look, I'm sorry. I never meant to make you feel like I never wanted you, but really, I do. I never had a friend before. I've devoted most of my life, for the past 10 years, I've mainly been focused on training my magic and spells, etc. All I ever wanted to do was show the world that I'm a hero, and of course, I never made time to make friends or even considered dating. But you changed that. You showed me that there's always time to work, and there's always time to just simply step away from it and spend it with people that I care about. And that being said, I mean you. For the past 6 weeks, Todoroki, I have had a great time training with you and spending time with you and the dates that we went on. I enjoyed your company very much, and when we watched the fairies do their traditional dance, and when we did our own dance, you had something that the world could never get a hold of. You had my heart." Todoroki then looked to Izuku while thinking. She then stood up and said, "Fine. If you want redemption, Izuku Midoriya, then you better go all out in this festival. If you don't, then I won't forgive you. And that goes the same for all of you. You heard what that purple-headed bastard said. If you don't give it your all and succeed, they will take your spot in class, and I don't want to see that happen. It's time to go beyond, plus ultra. Are you with me?" Everyone in the room cheered from Todoroki's speech. She would then turn her attention back to Izuku, and she would say, "Maybe sometime during the sports festival we'll talk." A smile comes across Izuku's face, and he says, "Okay." We then skip to the race. Every student in UA readied themselves at the mark. And when midnight said go, everyone started to run. Soon they entered a tunnel. It was getting cramped and everyone was having trouble moving. But when they eventually made it out, Todo-chan then froze the ground, snaring everyone by their feet. And only Class 1A managed to dodge her attacks and move on. Izuku saw it ahead of times for all the times that they spent training together. He's learned her moves and signals. He then catches up to her and says, "Hey, I'm glad I gave you a little growth, just like you did to me."
Whatever you say,
said Todo-chan. Izuku would then smile and say, "So, why haven't you ever returned my texts or called me?" Todo-chan, about to answer, was interrupted by when a giant zero-pointer hand swung over their heads. They both looked up to see 7 giant zero-pointers and a dozen smaller robots coming towards them. Izuku smiled and says, "You want to see what all that training did for me? Watch this." Izuku then raised both of his hands into the air, and all the 7 zero-pointers then started floating into the air with him. He then raised his hands even higher into the air, and then he slammed them down, causing the 7 zero-pointers to fall forward, landing on the smaller robots, destroying them all. Everyone who was watching was amazed by Izuku's power. President Mike even says, "Oh, I hope you're all watching this, folks, because one student from Class 1A single-handedly took down all those robots, and his name is Izuku Midoriya." The audience started cheering. Mr. Aizawa then says, "And let me tell you a little something, Mike. This might be a surprise, but Izuku Midoriya is actually quirkless. All those things you see is pure magic." President Mike would then get a surprised look by this, And he would say, I hope you all just heard that, ladies and gentlemen. Izuku Midoriya is quirkless, and his arsenal involves magic. That is really incredible. Izuku landed back to the ground in front of Toto-chan and said, well, see you in the next obstacle. He then ran, and Toto-chan says,
Hey, get back here!
Next is the Canyon Challenge. There were pillars of stone stacked on top of each other. Izuku looked down and saw what appeared to be an endless abyss and said, yeah, I don't want to fall down there. Izuku then jumped from pillar to pillar, and soon Toto-chan followed him. While jumping, she would leave little sliplets of ice on the pillars so that people wouldn't follow their tracks. Soon after a few jumps, Izuku had made it to the other side, and then he turned back to see Toto-chan, and he waved goodbye and then ran off.
Okay, you know what?
Said Toto-chan. She then raised both of her hands into the air and then ejected herself upwards by slamming her hands down, conjuring ice underneath her to eject herself forward. She then landed next to Izuku, and Izuku said, oh wow, that was pretty cool. Onto the minefield. Izuku continued to run until he sees something strange about this field. He then conjured a rock into his hands and he throws it out into the fields. And when the rock came in contact with the piles of dirt, what happened next was that a cloud of pink smoke popped from the ground. President Mike then said, don't worry, folks, those are non-lethal mines. Toto-chan then started treading softly, being as careful as possible as to not set off a mine. Izuku would then take a few steps backward to get a running start, and then when he reached the entrance of the minefield, he would then jump into the air, using his psychokinesis on himself. Using the momentum in his jump, Izuku was getting over the minefield faster than Toto-chan was, and when he passed her, he said, "Wee!" I must look like a nut right now. She then looked and saw that Izuku was almost at the end of it. She couldn't bear the thought of letting this jerk win, and so she would then conjure a path of ice leading to the end of the field.
Some people might use this, but I don't care. At this point, I'm not going to come in last place, let alone second place.
Izuku continues, and then he reaches the end of the field and he continues to run. He then sees Toto-chan catching up to him with ice emanating off of her body. Out of fright, he then said, "Whoop, swiggity swooty, she's coming for this booty." He then runs faster, but she eventually catches up and says,
I'm winning this thing.
"But what if I win?" said Izuku.
No, you're not,
said Toto-chan. While they were arguing back and forth, they could hear explosions from behind them. They both look back and see Bakugo coming towards them, along with Ida, using his engines. Soon, the four teens are side by side, entering a tunnel. Ida says, "Hey, Mr. Midoriya, I have to say, the way you handled those robots was a very surprising result." "Oh, thanks. Toto-chan here helped me with my training on me being able to do that." Bakugo, with an irritated voice, said, "Are you idiots seriously having a conversation as we're running towards the finish line?" "Oh yeah. Thanks for the reminder, Kachan. See you when I reach the finish line." Izuku then picked up the pace, getting in front of everyone. Toto-chan then says, "Hey, get back here!" Bakugo then says, "Oh hell no you don't!" Ida then says, "Hey, wait for me!" As they all get closer and closer, it's Izuku. No, it's Bakugo. No, it's Ida. No, it's Toto-chan. When they reached the light at the end of the tunnel, they were blinded by it, and they passed the finish line. But who passed first, they were all wondering. Toto-chan then says, "I came in first place. What are you talking about, Icy Hot? I was the one who came in first. I won. Now, Bakugo, it's just a game. But if we are going to point fingers at who won, Ida points at himself. While Izuku was catching his breath, soon after, everyone crossed the finish line, and they did a quick replay of who came in first place on the Jumbotron. This thing. And the one that came in first place was, by a hair, Tenya Ida. Ida would then start celebrating, saying, "Yes, I won!" Izuku would then congratulate him, saying, "Great job, Ida. Thank you, Mr. Midoriya. I can't wait to see what the next obstacle holds for us." Izuku would then look to Todo-chan, and she would stare back at Izuku. Izuku would say, "You know, you did a really great job out there. I'm surprised at that new ejection thing you did."
I know I did, but I was expecting you to win to get in first place,
said Todo-chan. Izuku would then smirk and say, "Well, if you look up there at the big screen, it does show that I came in second place, Bakugo in third place, and you in fourth place. So, ha!" Todo-chan would grow angry by him saying that, and would say,
"Damn it, I'll beat you in the next one, so you better watch your back, baka."
Izuku would continue to smile, and we then skip to the cavalry battle. Midnight would explain how it would work, and Ida would be given the 10 millionth headband, while Izuku was given 500, Bakugo 250, and Todo-chan 100. Whereas everyone else would get smaller numbers from 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, and 10. Everyone would then stare at Ida as if he was the prey. This sent shivers down Ida's spine, and everyone starts looking for their teams. Almost everyone went to Izuku wanting him to pick them as their teammates. Izuku would pick Uraraka and Yuka because, since their first encounterments, he's grown a soft spot for them. Izuku then thought it would be a good idea to pick someone from a support group, or maybe even 1B. He would then walk around and he would come across Shinso. Shinso would just look at Izuku out of anger, and he turned around, and then he would turn his back on the green-haired boy, not wanting to join his team. He looked around more, and he came across Mei Hatsume. "Excuse me, would you like to join my team?" Mei would then say,
"No way, you're the magic man, and you want me to join your coven? I accept."
"Well, I am not a witch, but welcome aboard."
But wait, before we go, can I bring my babies with me?"
"Your babies?"
"Yes, my babies. Like, this jetpack, it could be pretty handy to you, and these hover boots."
"Oh, you mean gadgets? Sure, bring them along."
Yay!
Soon after, everyone had their teammates. Bakugo had Kirishima, Mina, and Hinata. Hope I said his name right, the tape dude. Where Todo-chan had Yaoyorozu, Kaminari, and Rikido on her team, while Ida had Tokoyami, Ojiro, and Shinso from 1B. Everyone was ready, and everyone was equipped with their headbands. Midnight then said, "Begin!" and everyone would charge at Ida. Him and his teammates would then run away, doing their best to prevent anyone from getting a hold of their first place headband. Some people would try and take Izuku's headband, but Izuku would use his magic to stop them. The first team to come across him was Team Tetsu, but Izuku would then use his controlling abilities to make his team go in a different direction. Tetsu would be confused, saying, "Hey, where are you guys going?" But they didn't respond, for they were under Izuku's control for a second. The next people to come up to Izuku was a random group from 1B. Izuku would then see that they have a headband worth 35 points, and Izuku would say, "Let's try and get their points, everyone." They would all get ready in the position of charge. His team would then charge up ahead, and Aoyama would be a nervous wreck. And soon, after a little bit of a struggle, Izuku would then grab their team's headband with ease. "Thank you," said Izuku, as they ran off. But they were stopped when they were surrounded by 3 other teams. "Well, this ought to be easy," said Izuku. Mei would then squeal and say,
"This is the perfect opportunity. Quick, use the jetpack, Izuku."
Izuku would then say, "But I could just float us all into the air."
"Oh, please, just give it a chance, please."
"Okay then," said Izuku. "Everyone get ready." Izuku then waited for someone to make the first move. Then they all charged at Izuku at the same time. Izuku then powered on the jetpack, and all 3 of his teammates would fly into the air with him. Izuku was actually enjoying the ride and went a little too crazy flying higher. Yuga then says, "Izuku, this is a little too high for me." "Oh, sorry, this feels a lot different than levitating myself. If this is what flying is like without using my magic, I can't wait to get my wings." Uraraka would then say,
"Wings? What wings?"
"Oh, metaphorically speaking, Uraraka." Soon after, they landed in an open spot landing on the ground. Izuku would then look over and see Bakugo about to give his headband to Shinso. Izuku would then tell his teammates to charge in that direction. As they get closer, Izuku would then conjure a bucket of water over Bakugo's head and pour it on him, snapping him out of Shinso's control. "Kacchan, what are you doing? Don't give him your headband." Bakugo would then say, "What the hell?" He then throws an explosion to make Ida's team back off. Bakugo would then thank Izuku, and then him and his team would move on. Izuku would then notice that Shinso is glaring daggers at him, and he really wants to beat Izuku. As he stares, Izuku feels pressure building on his head, indicating that someone has a hold of his headband and is trying to steal it. He then turns around and sees a blonde-headed boy with blue eyes trying to steal it. Izuku turns around and he looks at this boy's eyes, and he sees a psychotic smile with it, as if he was the prey and he had finally caught it after many years of attempt. Uraraka, Mei, I wrote down Mia here, and Yuga thinks that it's over. But then everyone is completely still. Monoma would say, What the hell is going on? Why can't I move?" He would then look at Izuku, seeing that he has his index finger in the air, with a light of green engulfing his finger. Izuku would then wave his finger and say, "Nah. Everyone in Izuku's group would smile from the rescue, and Izuku would look at Monoma, wondering what to do with him. He then stole his headband worth 50 points. He and his team would then leave, leaving Monoma empty-handed. They would then move on to the next team, and Izuku would come across Team Todoroki. Izuku and Todoroki would lock eyes. Uraraka would say,
"What do we do, Izuku?"
"Just stand still. Let's see what they do first. After a few seconds, Denki would power up his quirk, his electrification quirk, and light would emanate off of Yaoyorozu. Everyone, hold on tight. Izuku puts a hand behind him, awaiting for something to happen, and at the same time he had his finger on the trigger of the jetpack to activate it. Now, said Toto-chan. Suddenly, Denki blew up in electricity, and Yaoyorozu covered the rest of their teammates with a thick layer of a blanket. Izuku quickly conjured a thick layer of blanket himself, covering his own team. Almost everyone in the battlefield was getting hit with 2.3 million volts of electricity. They would then stay that way while Denki zoned out and went stupid, doing his signature thumbs up. Damn it, said Toto-chan, as she sees that nothing affected Izuku's team. They all just charged at each other, and Izuku and Toto-chan were at a fight over each other's headbands. Izuku would say, So, how you been? I'm fine, but that's besides the point. She then touches Izuku's right arm, using her ice and conjuring ice on his arm. Although it was ice, it stinged as if fire was set off of his arm. With a quick hand, she then grabbed one of Izuku's headbands and ran off. Yuga would say, "Oh no, she's got your headband." Izuku would then say, "No, she doesn't." Izuku would then reach into his shirt and pull out his 500th headband. "Oh, you still got it," said Yuga. "Yep." She took the 35 headband. As Toto-chan looks at the headband, she then noticed that it was the wrong one. Son of a... We then cut back over to Izuku. There was 1 more minute left on the clock. Ida had somehow managed to keep his 10 millionth headband. Izuku had an idea and says, "You know what, everyone? How about we spice things up a bit?" Uraraka would say,
"No? And what did you have in mind?"
"Watch this." With a snap of his fingers, Izuku would conjure up miniature tree snakes and have them sneakily take Ida's headband and replace it with a smaller one. He then gave Toto-chan his 500th headband. He let Bakugo keep his headband of 50 points and even gave him a little extra points. And Izuku equipped himself with the 10 millionth headband. As Midnight did the countdown from 5, 4, 3, 2, everyone then leaped at Ida in a desperate attempt to get his headband, but when Midnight said 0, time's up, everyone then face slammed to the ground, exhausted. Ida thinks that he had won, but when he looked up to the scoreboards and saw that Izuku had won instead of him, Ida says, But how? Izuku would then raise his index finger into the air, revealing a tiny tree snake. Ida would then fall to his knees and say, "Dang nabbit!" Midnight would then say,
"Izuku Midoriya's team has come in first place. We're going to take a short break and let everyone build up their stamina." Ooh. Ada. Accidental double entendre on that.
As Class 1A headed to their break room, Izuku stands a few feet away from the door, looking at Toto-chan. She walks past the door and to Izuku. All the girls from their class were peeking around the corner of the door, eavesdropping on their conversation. Izuku says, "Hey."
"Hey,"
says Toto-chan. "So, are you alright?"
"Yeah, I'm fine."
"Todoroki, I... Toto-chan interrupts Izuku, saying,
Zuko, I didn't text you back because I was afraid that you were mad at me. I mean, I tried to kiss you and it's pretty obvious that you're not into me.
She then looks to the ground, but then felt Izuku's hand on the left side of her face. She slowly looks back up to Izuku and he says, "No, Todoroki, I do like you in that way. It's just, I was just caught off guard. As you know, I've never been with a woman before, but if you let me, I'd like to try again." Izuku then closes his eyes as he leans towards Todoroki. Todoroki then squints her eyes, about to accept Izuku's kiss. From the door, the girls are watching, rooting for Izuku to kiss her, like as if they were watching a soap opera. As Izuku continues to lean As Izuku continues to lean forward, he felt the touch of Toto-chan's fingers on his lips. Toto-chan says, "Look, Izuku, I'm kind of having mixed feelings at the moment. I just don't think now is a good time." "I understand," said Izuku. From the door, the girls are cursing Todoroki for not letting Izuku go through with it. The two then entered the break room, feeling relief that they had that conversation. Although the girls dragged Toto-chan to the corner of the room, asking her what the hell's wrong with her, chastising her for not letting Izuku kiss her. Bakugo and Izuku talks amongst each other and says, "I take it she's not mad at you anymore." Izuku says, "Well, there's a little bit of tension between us, but at least we're communicating." The break has ended, and everyone goes back to the Coliseum. Midnight states that the next challenge will be a 1v1. Two students will fight against each other. Midnight says,
"You're more than welcome to use your quirks, but know when enough is enough, for if you end up losing control of yourself, you're disqualified. Now, everyone will pick a name from this box to find out who their opponent will be."
Ojiro would volunteer to back out of the game, for he does not remember what happened in the Cavalry battle. Midnight would allow this, but a lot of people would try to convince him to continue, but he just simply would say, "My pride won't allow it. If I can't remember, then I won't continue." Everyone was assigned the same people like in the show. Izuku would go up against Shinso. Izuku would then walk up to Shinso himself and say, "May the best man win." Shinso would say, "Punch yourself in the face." Izuku would then say, "I'm not doing that." "Damn it!" Shinso would then walk off, and Izuku would say, "Hey Shinso, when did the Spanish Sahara disappear?" Shinso would say, "January 12th, 1976. Screw you!" Back in the break room, Ojiro remembered that Shinso's quirk doesn't work on Izuku, but he felt obligated to tell him to be careful. Izuku would feel appreciated, and it was time for their battle to begin. Izuku would go up against Shinso. They both would stand on opposite sides of the battlefield. Midnight would then say, "Go," and Izuku and Shinso would stare at each other for a few seconds. Shinso would charge at Izuku, and Izuku would casually walk towards Shinso. The two would meet, and Shinso would constantly throw punches at Izuku, but Izuku would only block them, looking closer at Shinso and say, you need to get some sleep. You look really tired." "Shut up," said Shinso. The two would continue their fight, but Shinso would do the same move repeatedly, and Izuku would do the same dodge repeatedly. This would go on for a minute, but Izuku speaks. He grabs Shinso's arms, holding them down, and says, "Why are you behaving like this? Are you trying to prove yourself to somebody?" "That's none of your business! Let me go!" Shinso would shake out of Izuku's grip, but we all know Izuku just letting him go. Izuku lets go. Shinso would then land a punch on Izuku, but then he grunted, for he felt like he punched a hard surface. Izuku would say, "Are you the type of person that capitalizes on the most animalistic impulses of the public?" "Shut up," said Shinso. Izuku would say, "If you want to know what I think you're too eager to please. Clearly some people know about your quirk and have other thoughts. You may have you may have a very powerful quirk, yes, but you have a flaw." Shinso would then throw another swing at Izuku while saying, "Shut up!" Izuku would then say, "You have a short temper. You rely on your quirk too much." "Oh my god, why won't you shut up? You don't know me. Ever since I got my quirk, people have only looked at me as if I was a villain. They thought that, hey, you could use your quirk for villainy, but I don't want to use it as that. It always bothered me to hear that because I'm not. I never will be." Izuku would say, "Okay, now that we got that out, let's talk about some personal things. I've only I've only known you for a few short days, and judging by your behavior, and when you came to my class, you were very egotistical. You think you're better than everyone just because of your quirk, but without it, I mean, look at your hands." Shinso would then look down at his hands. They were beaten and practically bloody just a little bit from punching Izuku. Izuku would say, "Well, clearly you've never been in a real fight before. You use your quirk as a cop-out." This upsets Shinso even more, and he would punch Izuku over and over again, and Izuku would allow it. Shinso would say, "Shut up," after each punch that he landed on him, and he would say, "You don't know me. Stop acting like you care. You don't know me and you're not me, so shut up." Izuku would say, "Oh, really? Well, you know what? I'll do just that." Izuku then snaps his fingers and shapeshifts himself, looking an exact copy of Shinso. He even copies his voice just to take it a bit further, and says, "So, is this good representation?" Shinso would look at himself, bewildered that this is something that Izuku can do. "Just what the hell are you?" asked Shinso. Izuku would say, "I'm Izuku Midoriya, or in this case, I'm Hitoshi Shinso, if you may. Or Hitachi Shinso, excuse me." Shinso would grin his teeth and charge at Izuku while saying, "Stop making fun of me!" Izuku repeatedly dodges and says, "I'm not making fun of you. I just want to show you how I see you." Izuku would then start mimicking Shinso, all the words that he said originally to him the first time they met. Shinso was in a lot of disbelief when he saw himself say those kinds of things. Shinso isn't so much denial. He tells Izuku to shut up as he punches harder, hoping that it would at least do some kind of damage towards him. Izuku would then say, "Deny it, that's all you know. What I see is that when it comes to the real you, it's like this." Izuku would then change into a small toddler version of Shinso, looking scared, on the ground, staring up at the real Shinso. Shinso was bewildered of what he saw. It was him, but young again. Young Shinso speaks. Please, don't hurt me. Stop mocking me, said the real Shinso. Please, just leave me alone. Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Out of fury, Shinso then grabbed the small version of himself by the collar and raising him up towards his face, while saying, Stop making fun of me, you jerk! That's not me! You don't know me. Stop messing with my head. I'm not weak. The small child began to tear up. Shinso looks around and sees the people staring at him, finally realizing he's looking like he's harassing this child. Even though they saw Izuku change, it's still a sight of Shinso's actions, of seeing his actions when it comes to a crying, helpless child. Shinso then looks to the smaller version of himself and he puts him down. Stop this, please. Izuku then changes back into his normal self and says, even after all that tough guy talk, you were saying, how well can you even take a hit? Shinso then looked to the ground at his fists. They were completely bloody and beaten from punching Izuku. He starts reflecting on his actions and finally comes to his own conclusion, having his epiphany. He then pants for a few seconds and says, hit me. Is that what'll make you feel better? Asked Izuku. If I hit you? Just do it, said Shinso. Izuku then looked down to Shinso's bloodied hands. They were beaten even more than before. Izuku sees that he has mentally had enough. He then placed a hand on Shinso's shoulder and says, before I do this, duly noted that you got guts. You actually did put up a good fight. You just need to train more. For if the next person you go up against who is immune to your quirk, that person's not going to go easy on you like I did. But it was nice getting to know you. Right now, victory is mine. Izuku then battered his fist back, and instead of hitting Shinso, he then took 3 steps forward while Shinso took 3 steps back, pushing him out of the ring. Midoriya would then say Shinso has... Midnight. This says Midnight. Midnight would then say,
Shinso has stepped out of the ring. Izuku Midoriya is the winner of this round.
Izuku then raises Shinso's hands up and he heals them with his magic. He then says, if you want to, I know somebody who can teach you on combat. Meet me after school and we'll do more discussion of details. Izuku then smiles and then he walks away. As he's walking, Shinso thinks to himself, man, that guy is weird. Izuku went to the break room and he would be asked why didn't he fight back against Shinso. Izuku would then say Shinso needed to have his eyes open. Also, he was a little too reliant on his power, and I wanted to tell him that he needed to work on his physical strength more. And since I'm somewhat invulnerable, I wasn't bothered by his hits. Therefore, I didn't really see a reason to fight him, and it was kind of at a disadvantage because I'm clearly stronger than him. The time came for Izuku and Todo-chan's fight to come after everyone had theirs. But before that, Endeavor spoke to Izuku in a hallway. He then glared daggers at Izuku. But then, Izuku broke the silence saying, is there something I can do for you, Endeavor? Endeavor then spoke, saying, I don't know what's going on with you, but you have a lot of power. Tell me, what are you? Izuku would then say, "What do you think I am?" Endeavor says, "I think you're a lab experiment. You were born quirkless. Someone or something gave you all these abilities." Izuku smiles and says, "Not really, but alright. But you are right about somebody giving me these." Endeavor says, "Anyway, I want you to convince my daughter to use her fire side." "No," said Izuku. "What did you say?" "You and I can't force her to do something that she does not want to do. Perhaps, maybe if you were a better parent, she might have considered it. But from what I've heard, you were a horrible parent to her." The fire surrounding Endeavor grows as Izuku passes him. Damn kid. And now, it was time for Izuku and Todoroki's fight. Oh, I wonder how this will turn out on the next episode, though. If you made it to the end of this video, consider yourselves #blessed, and hopefully Izuku and Todoroki can resolve their relationship. Therefore, everybody, good night.